Welcome everyone to this fourth session of Virtual College Week, which is an opportunity for CRS alums to come together and learn more about the college admissions process, scholarships, and also postgrad opportunities. Today, we will be speaking about the GEJ Scholarship, which you will learn more about in a minute. My name is Liam, and I am the program coordinator at LAJF. I was a camper myself 11 years ago, and I'm also I've been part of the GEJ Scholarship Committee for a couple of years now, which I recommend as a thing to join farther down the line if college admissions is something that you're interested in. I'm super happy to have Peter with us today and Monica, who would you guys mind introducing yourselves, please?
Sure. Okay, go ahead, Monica.
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Monica. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I attended Camp Rising Sun in 2015 and 2016. And yeah, so later on, I'm going to be talking about a few tips and advice that I have for applying for the scholarship. I received it 2 times during my freshman year and sophomore year of college. So yeah.
And I'm Peter Giacconi. I was a camper back when dinosaurs roamed the earth back in 1983, and had not been connected with camp for a long time, and then came back into the fold 4 or 5 years ago, and have been working as chair with the scholarship committee, which is I found has been a wonderful way to give back to the organization that certainly made a very positive impact on my life. And this scholarship, as I'm sure Monica shares her experiences, is something that we think has a very high impact on the campers as they move out from Camp Rising Sun and out into the world. Sort of a last little way we can help our alumni in the way that we can. So we'll be talking about that today as well. I'm happy to be with you today.
Thank you. We also have Laura with us.
Hi, everyone. Laura, I'm the program director for LIJF. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones, so very excited about that. Very much looking forward to today's session and to you all applying.
Yes, definitely. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Just some housekeeping notes. It'd be great if you want to turn your cameras on. That way, when we speak with you, it feels like we are speaking with people and not with our screens, but that's totally up to you. And if you rather not, then please leave them off. And also, just so you know, we are recording this session and we will make the video available later, which means both that you don't have to take notes because everything's available online, but also that if you don't want to be on camera online, then you could keep your camera off. Yeah, so before we get started with the GEJ Scholarship, I just wanted to have Laura say a couple of words about another scholarship opportunity about which we spoke yesterday, but just to refresh people's minds.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Eliam said, not only is there the GEJ Scholarship available for alumni and previous staff for Camp Rising Sun, but we also have a couple other scholarships available for you all as well. One is with SIT Study Abroad, which is a study abroad organization that I myself actually used to work for. And their programs are really based on cultural immersion, language learning, and programmatic topics. So it's a big focus on academic learning. And so one scholarship that's available is a $2,000 scholarship towards semester programs and one $1,000 scholarship towards summer programs. One other scholarship opportunity I want to let you all know about as well is with the School for International Training Graduate Institute, which is where I myself earned my master's in international education. So they're offering one 20% scholarship towards tuition and two $5,000 scholarships towards tuition. And so this is a graduate institute that is very focused in experiential education, which is what our program is based on. And it's a large focus on social justice and a lot of things that Camp Rising Sun also really believes in. So I encourage you all to check them out. They're on our scholarship page on our website. And we'll also have the session from yesterday be available on our website, which we will email to you next week.
Amazing, thank you. So I think that's all for the round of introductions. And so to get into the meat of today's session, the GEJ Scholarship is named after George E. Jonas, who we all know as Freddie, the founder of our program, and it's funded by the I don't know how to say that word, Lucy Trust, and CRS alumni and friends. And yeah, and so we're just going to speak a bit more about it today. All CRS alums are eligible to apply, even if you've just been a summer staff member who didn't go to camp as a camper. You can apply for the scholarship as an undergraduate, if you're doing a master's or for a PhD, but the only limitation is that it's only for those studying in the US. So if you're studying outside the US, unfortunately, this would not be applicable to you. But if you're thinking about studying in the US now or in the future, then keep us in mind. This year's deadline is June 15th, and it's usually always around June 15th. So if you're applying in the future, also keep this like springtime, end of springtime deadline in mind for when you're planning. Yeah. So the way it works is the GEJ Scholarship is awarded to the people who the committee finds appropriate to award the scholarship to, and they will give you a specific amount of money that you can use towards your education. It's within the discretion of the committee, or the committee decides how much money to give to each awardee. But in the past, usually it's been between $1,000 and $5,000. And you get the scholarship for 1 year, although as Monica said, you can apply as many times as you want, and you may be awarded the scholarship 2 years in a row or 3 years in a row, or however many years in a row, as there is no limit as to how many times you can apply. And we acknowledge that given the high cost of education in the US, the amount of money that the scholarship gives is not super large. So there's no way ever almost you could pay your whole tuition bill with this. And so the function of the scholarship is really of filling a need gap, right? Like if you have perhaps other sources of financial aid, but you still have a bit of money to pay that you haven't been able to find other sources for, that's where the scholarship I think has the biggest impact. So another thing that should be clear is that the scholarship committee will not send you the money. The money will be sent to the college or the university that you will be attending to cover anything that's paid for by you to the university directly. So that can be tuition, or maybe if you live in student housing that's rented by the university, or if the college has a canteen or a cafeteria and that's paid for by the university through the university directly. Those are the kinds of costs that you can that this scholarship can go towards. But it cannot be used for by your university or college to reduce whatever other financial aid gifts that they may have given you. If that does it make sense to everyone? Can I get like a thumbs up if it does make sense? Great. Thank you. Cool. So when the committee meets to choose the people that will get the scholarship, there's 4 things that we take into account. The first one being intellectual, and in no particular order. We take them all into account together. So the first one is intellectual ability, which we would discern through your grades, through your writing, through the experiences that you have shared with us. Your character, which also we can also gather from perhaps like the commitments that you have made to different groups that you have been a part of, or like the research that you have chosen to do and things like that. Your financial need, as I said before, this scholarship, one of the scholarship's aims is to fill that need gap. And so we will take into account whether what kind of impact the scholarship could have in your academic career. And then lastly, we will also take into account your experience at CRS, the things that you have done that are CRS-like, or your commitment to CRS things after camp. and your future promise of fostering the values of camp. So I guess to be clear, that and maybe Peter can correct me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to make sure that you have been 1,000% involved in specifically LAGF CRS things. It just means that we want to see that you have taken the values that you learned at camp and applied them to other endeavors that you have maybe been involved in your life after camp. One, if you attended the session on Monday, this may sound familiar already, but an important thing that we look for is we want to see a cohesive and complete application that that can really show us what you learned at camp, how you've applied that, and how you will continue to apply that. And so it's really important that it's not just like a list of things that you've done, but that you tell us who you are and what you want to do in the near and far future, and that you give us a glimpse of that personality beyond a list of achievements, for example. So within the GEJ Scholarship, there's one named scholarship, which is the Pete Seeger Scholarship. This has been awarded since 2014, and it's the same application process, but every year, one of the GEJ scholars will be a Pete Seeger scholar, or most years, I guess some, yeah. Like the committee may choose a Pete Seeger scholar as well. And I'm not sure if you guys know Pete Seeger. Do people here know Pete Seeger? Would someone like to volunteer and tell us?
I might be one of the few people who does know who he is, but
do you want
a very well-known folk singer and music artist who was very, very popular a while back. But he was very much at the forefront of being an activist in a lot of the values and a lot of things. He went to camp many, many years ago, but he was a very huge advocate for social justice and a lot of the other values of the camp. So he's one of our proudest alums, and basically made a career making music and traveling the country and traveling the world, actually. Very well-known figure, sort of using his music in order to communicate the message of social justice and equality and being kind to one another, frankly. He's a great man, and certainly it's nice to have something in his memory. But to the point, it's folded into the existing scholarship program. The only wrinkle is that it's looking for someone who has some particular quality or aspect to their experiences. Sometimes the music doesn't have to be, but where they particularly encapsulate sort of those social justice issues and being an activist in their community. I think that's the most key thing. And so to the extent we see that, we'll designate someone as a Pete Seeger scholar out of the group of awardees that are picked every year.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, Peter. So just to reiterate once more, you don't have to apply for a different Pete Seeger scholarship. You just apply for the same scholarship. And if it so happens that activism and being committed to your community is a big part of your identity and of what you have done, then you may be a good candidate for this particular named scholarship. And this scholarship will be at least $1,000. Cool. And so now Peter is just going to run us over the application process and the different bits of information that we require.
Sure, thank you. So just to reiterate the point that was made earlier, I think having a complete application is probably the single most important thing you can do to have increase your chances of being awarded something. Just to run through the four basic pieces here. So first, obviously, is education. We're really looking for people who are high performers academically for the most part. So in order towards that end, copies of transcripts, most recent ones, also what courses you're taking, and also achievements and experience. So any academic honors that you've won, any work or travel experience as well. It doesn't have to be necessarily directly related to school. If you did some traveling during summer abroad or something of that nature during your time, you want to know about it. Any extracurriculars, obviously, and volunteer work, again, both within your school as well as in your community. It doesn't have to be school related necessarily. Involvement in post-camp is something we do look at, and it is a consideration. Not the only one, obviously, there's many. We do like to see that because it shows commitment to the values and the things that we hold dear. And really anything else, you know, and a resume is a terrific way to summarize all this, because I apologize, even the application, I think we're always working on ways to streamline it, but if you have sort of a resume that has everything in one place that we can just look at, terrific. If not, fill out the application, that's fine too. But again, the idea is to give us as complete a picture as possible in the most recent. So, you know, obviously up-to-date information. You know, if you leave out your current year of, you know, if you just have the last couple of quarters, because I know June 15th, you know, middle of June or early June, depending on when your school semesters and when your school processes things, there might be a bit of a delay there. So there might be a lag, but provide us up-to-date, most recent that you can, that's consistent with the academic reporting schedule of your institution. Next one. And then, of course, essays. And this is probably where students tend to distinguish themselves the most, because I will say in the education department, the vast majority of people who apply are generally all fairly high caliber, very high achieving, and very good students. So it's uncommon that that's a huge differentiating factor. I think it's in the essays where the biggest differentiation tends to lie between awardees and non-awardees. And so there are two. The idea here is to be brief, to not go on and on and on, 500 words. One, just to talk about your Camp Rising Sun experience in and of itself, what was unique about it. And again, to the point that was made earlier, you don't want to just list, I did this, I did that, I was a sachem 3 times, etc. We know that, or can pick that up from, you know, from other folks. But sort of talking about in your own words what it meant to you, what you learned, what you took away, something that may have happened to you while you're at camp, and now you look back on it and it looks very different to you, or it changed the way you interact with your community in some specific manner when you came back from camp. So taking that experience and but personalizing it and telling us, because we all everyone on the committee has all been to camp, we know what it's like, so we know the extent. We don't need the detail of how it was. We need to know why and what it meant to you. And then the second essay is to talk about your future plans. And this is also very important for us to get a window and an insight into where you plan to go. And it doesn't mean you need, you know, when I was going through school, I had no idea where I wanted to be. And that's perfectly fine. No one's expecting you to have that all mapped out. Most of us are figuring out as we go along. I'm 52 years old and I'm still figuring it out. So it's not a matter of not having it all nailed down, but what it does mean is being thoughtful. And again, bringing that CRS experience and spelling out in some sort of very personal way how you see the CRS experience that you had building into your future plans, and whatever path you choose, and whatever it is fine, whether you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a forest ranger, it doesn't matter. But how CRS and things that you learned at camp will influence and factor into that, so that we can, again, get a really good sense of you and who you are, and what kind of the sort of person you were when you came in, and how maybe you're a slightly different person now on the other end of that, and how you see that rolling forward as you go through your life. So, you know, the idea here is to give us as much insights to you as a person and what makes you unique and special. And everybody is unique and special. So I would say that candidates, everybody who applies is spectacular and wonderful and deserving. But, you know, we need to make differentiation. We have limited resources. So anything you can do to help shed light and insights in terms of what makes you special and unique, and will allow the values of camp to live on in a new person and influence the world, which is the whole purpose and mission of the foundation, would be helpful to us. And then financial aid, and this is the part that sometimes is the most complicated. Probably the most important thing in this list of things, you can kind of read it on your own, but is to give us that financial award letter. What we find is that and a copy of your FAFSA form, your FAFSA form, those two items themselves are generally going to be the two single most important pieces of paper in the file in terms of us assessing what your need is, because the financial award letter helps us nail down what the need is, how much is loans, how much is grants, and also nailing down exactly what your actual costs are going to be. And the FAFSA gives us a sense of your financial situation on your personal life with your family. Certainly any circumstance is most important. I jump to the end. What we should be aware of. Sometimes that award letter and sometimes that FAFSA doesn't give the full story. So if there's any color you can give us in terms of your financial situation, you know, if a family member, if you're living at home and a mother or father has just lost their job, got demoted or on disability or anything of that nature, which would color or provide insights in terms of your financial situation that wouldn't jump out of some of the other paperwork that you're submitting here. We'd ask you to share that with us to the extent you're comfortable. I'm not asking that to violate any privacy, but to the best of your ability, please share whatever you're comfortable with, because that gives us insights. And so again, sometimes the financial aid forms don't give the full color and background in terms of your financial situation. If there's a particularly extreme need for some reason because of a circumstance like that, please try to make us aware of it, and we can factor that into the decision as well. And of course, if you have any sources of income, you should let us know as well, because that's something for us to know. So be as transparent and open and candid as you can. We appreciate that. Oh, there was a question?
Yes, Peter, it's me. I have a question. So what if an international student wants to apply and they don't have a FAFSA, because FAFSAs are only filled out by US citizens or green card holders and things like that. Mm-hmm. So how can they give us a picture of their financial need?
Yeah, the financial award letter will generally help, because even international students will have one of those. And then I would say it really depends on wherever they're coming from. So if they have copies of a tax return that they may have filed, or any sort of personal financial information that they can provide in terms of, we've gotten folks who've applied from Africa and stuff like that. And so they've given us a list of sort of, here's my family has a business, here's the value of the business, here's, we have 2 cars, I have 3 siblings in college, my parents make X amount of dollars, I'm working part-time doing this. So really, if you don't have sort of an official form like a FAFSA, I would say create some sort of summary financial picture so that we get some sense of where you're coming from, and just come do the best you can. I will tell you is when we get these applications, we go through them, and before we, as a committee, we'll meet, and I give them the first pass. And if I see something glaring missing, I will reach out to the applicant and say, hey, there's a big gap here. Is there anything you can provide that might help? Or there's something on the application that's unclear for some reason. Again, I'll reach out and ask for clarification. So, I'd ask you to do your best, for your first shot should be as complete as you can make it. But to the extent we think there's something missing, we'll certainly won't be shy about reaching out. And sometimes that helps fill it in as well.
Thank you.
And then how does the committee process work? It's not particularly scientific. It's a group of folks like myself and Eliam and others who love camp and believe in the mission and have obviously been campers at some point in their life, and it's recently or not so recently, have a solid understanding of Sierra's values, and also have some experience in some cases in higher ed. So I've been teaching classes at a college in my neighborhood for part of the last 10 years. So, I have a master's degree as well. So, I've been involved in that area for some time, and some other members of the committee have similar experience. So, we kind of know what colleges are looking for. So it's a little bit like a college admissions board kind of flavor. But, kind of to some of the points you made earlier, what are the things we're focusing on is how thoughtful was the person in putting it together? Did they just mail it in, or did they really think about the application and put some real creativity into it and really shared some great information? Have they made it clear and explicit how the camp experience is going to be carried forward? So if we're giving you resources, how are you going to pay that forward as you go march through life, both in college and beyond? And financial impact, I don't want to minimize this. We really do tend to prioritize those who have the greatest demonstrated financial need. If someone's got 98% of their college expenses covered and they have to take out a $1,000 loan, we're maybe not as inclined in that case. Whereas somebody who has to take out $10,000 or $20,000 in loans, in some senses that's going to be a much greater financial hardship coming out of school. And what are they going to be studying? Someone doing accounting and finance, and they're going to be maybe getting a better job out of school and maybe having higher salaries, or someone to be a teacher and maybe the salaries aren't so great. So, not that we want to make judgment calls here, I'm not suggesting that, but we try to take a look at the whole picture and say, well, what's that financial impact, and sort of marry it with the limited resources that we have. The other 2 points here I think we've covered already. Completeness is very important. Again, we'll follow up if there's any gaps, and try to convey a message. I wouldn't do the application all in one day. I'd print it out, be a suggestion. Think about it, take some notes, and try to make something that's cohesive and come back to it. Try not to jam it all together at the 11th hour, do it. Try to do at least a little bit of work time, put it aside for a day or two, come back to it, particularly on the essay. That I think people who are thoughtful, it shows through when we line up all the essays. It's pretty easy to see who spent some time and effort on it and was thoughtful about it, and who maybe was a little less diligent on it.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter, for this run through. And now we have Monica, who is a great example of someone who put a bunch of thoughts into her applications 2 years in a row, and got the scholarship. And so I think she's just going to give us, some tips and a bit more about her background.
Hi, thank you, Eliam, Laura, and Peter again for having me here and for organizing this. So just a little about myself before I get started. My name is Monica. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and again, I attended CRS in 2015 and 2016. And I first attended after my freshman year of high school. And so right after that summer, I went to volunteer in the office, the LAJF office, starting in 2015 all the way until 2019. And then after that, I worked as a LAJF fellow starting January 2019, and I ended January 2020. And so basically, during that time, I wrote blogs for the LAJF website. And later on, I was awarded the GEJ Scholarship in 2018, 2019, 2020 academic years. And I'm currently a student at NYU's Gallatin School of Individualized Study, and I'm minoring in Spanish. And for those who are not familiar with Gallatin, you make your own major and in concentration. So I'm planning a concentration that focuses on identity, cultural studies, and journalism. And so some of my future career goals is to work in the journalism industry, film industry, and creative writing. The next slide. So these are just a few tips and advice that you could take into consideration. You don't have to follow them, but these are just stuff that I constantly told myself as I was applying for these. So to begin, one thing I'd say is to not underestimate or underrate your experiences. I know that when I was first applying, I believe I was a college freshman and I didn't have a lot of achievements during my freshman year, so I wasn't sure of what exactly I should say. But I feel like it's really important to also consider your high school achievements, because even though they might not have taken place during the same year, they, for the most part, some of them may have impacted who you are and your future goals. So it's definitely worth mentioning. And you could even mention impactful events. Oh, that's great. Impactful events you attended, led, assisted, even for a short amount of time, because even if it's for a short amount of time, I personally feel like if it shaped who you are and shaped your goals for the future, you should definitely mention it. Also, some things I did, as I mentioned, projects or assignments that kind of impacted me, made me who I am, and non-academic accomplishments. So I feel like your accomplishments that you mentioned doesn't have to be school-based. It could also just be personal things you're doing. It could be artwork you did personally, writing you're doing personally, as long as it impacted you again and kind of shaped your goals academically and for your career. And you could also mention volunteer or work experiences. And so the second advice is to self-reflect on the leadership skills you learned at camp and apply to post-camp experiences. Because for the most part, I feel like for most of us, there's at least one thing we learned at camp, big or small, and it's definitely worth mentioning. And for example, it could be how to handle difficult situations, how we react to stress, when we learn how to work with others. And in some way, I feel like it may have influenced the projects we're doing now, our class assignments, the stuff that's going on in our life right now. In some sort of way, the lessons you learned at camp may or may have carried on to your life right now. And so if there's something that I could advise you, is to really reflect on these skills that you learn, and it doesn't necessarily have to be leadership skills. And for example, before camp, I thought that you can only really have one passion in life, and once you have that passion, you kind of go for it, you're set for life, and you have that one career goal that you want to do. But during camp, I learned that you could have multiple passions, and so that's why my goal is to pursue multiple career paths, because I don't see myself just with one set passion. So I feel like if you learn anything like that, big or small, during camp, you should definitely mention it in your application. And so the next advice I have is to show, don't tell. So instead of listing adjectives about yourself, prove these traits with evidence. For example, something I kept on telling myself is not to be very vague. So for example, at one point I wrote, during my drafts, I wrote, I'm very dedicated to my studies, but I realized that I have to explain why I believe I'm dedicated to my studies. So paint a picture and really, like, for example, like you could tell them about a time of when your dedication to your studies was tested, but then you overcame the struggle. Like, because we could all list adjectives about ourselves, but it's really like the evidence in the picture that really proves it, and it makes you stand out. And another thing I have is to be specific. Don't underestimate the knowledge gained from your experiences. Any accomplishment that impacted you is worth mentioning. And a quote that I feel like kind of relates to this is, "A dream without a plan is just a wish." So I feel like we could all like dream stuff and like plan out like, you know, wish stuff, but once you have an actual plan, or it doesn't have to be like a full plan, but as long as you're giving some type of like evidence or some type of visualization of where you want to go, it really creates a more realistic picture of where you want to go. So and the last thing I have is you are unique, so tell them why you are. So just like what Peter mentioned earlier, we're all unique, and I feel like at least in personal experiences, when I'm writing applications, I feel like when I'm being very vague, when I'm writing my responses, I feel like I could eventually end up blending in with other applicants, or they won't really see me for who I am. So I feel like if you're not genuine or authentic with what you're writing, you have to, like, you're going to blend in with other people and they're not going to remember you. So I feel like as long as you're authentic and you state your goals and your plan with confidence, that it creates a better picture of who you are and they'll remember you. And I guess that ties into the beginning of don't underestimate or underrate your goals. And yeah, and just as I feel like if you have confidence as you're writing and really think out who you are and how camp influenced you, that could really create a realistic picture of who you are, and it can make you be memorable.
Amazing. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Monica, for sharing your perspectives on the GEJ scholarship process. I think your tips are super useful, not only for this scholarship, but for any other application that you guys may put together in the future. And from experience, you will apply to many things in life. And so I think these are really good tips that you can carry forward. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, as we just have time for questions, in case anyone would like to ask anything, like anything of any sort, really. I think the way we'll do it is if you can use the raise your hand function, which you can find by going to the bottom of your screen. There's a button that says participants, or if you can't see it, you should have something that says more, and you click there, and then you should be able to see a raise hand function. Can people see that? Can anyone not see it? If you can't see it, can you just unmute and we'll work with you? Yes, amazing. Renzo, would you like to ask us a question? Renzo, would you like to ask?
Yes, unmute his microphone. Looks like he's muted.
Yeah, you are muted. Let's see. Well, while we wait for Renzo, who I'm not sure, maybe having some tech issues. Does anyone else have a question or a reflection that they would like to share, or a fear or a hope for the scholarship process?
Maybe just a thing that I didn't catch right. So it's like the scholarship is good for only New York, the state, or everywhere in the US, every university there?
Anywhere in the US.
Yeah, right. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, Elliot, do you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you now, Renzo.
No, I'm not Renzo, I'm Rodrigo, because maybe because I invited myself to this session, but I don't know why I didn't receive your email.
Okay.
So Renzo just gave me his link, and yeah.
Cool. Hey, Rodrigo, good to hear you.
Okay, hi. Good to hear you too. Sorry if you have already touched this theme, but I wasn't here. So can I apply to those scholarships that you have talked about before being accepted to any college, or some of them are after, or some of them are before being accepted?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. So I think the question is, can someone apply for the GEJ scholarship before they have received an acceptance from their college?
You can apply, but I don't think we would finalize the decision until we saw that you actually were accepted and had received a financial aid package. So yeah, we can't award give an award without knowing that information, where you're going to school and what the financial status of that enrollment. So I would say hold off until you actually have acceptance and have all your paperwork. I know the timing is a little tricky, so by June 15th you should have you should know what you're doing in the fall, most likely. So yeah, I think we would need that. If there's some special circumstances around that, let us know. We can try to work with you, but in general, we would need that in order to make an informed decision regarding the award.
Yeah. So also, perhaps just to add on to that, like if it's the case that you're waitlisted at a number of colleges and you haven't been accepted by the June 15th date, apply with, I would say, apply with as much information as you have, and then as soon as you receive an acceptance, let us know. And hopefully the acceptance will come before the committee meets, because as Peter said, we need to have a picture of what your financial situation will be. Did that answer your? Oh, sorry.
No, I say because the deliberations usually happen sometime in July. So we get all the applications June. We need time to review everything, and then we usually try to have a committee meeting sometime in early to mid-June, early to mid-July, and make our decisions. Then we have to reach out to the schools to confirm that the award's not going to cause you to lose anything. We won't want to do that. So it's sort of a process we need to follow. So we have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of timing, but not a whole lot. So yeah, if you're waitlisted, I suppose apply, and then by the time we're starting to review applications, potentially we could get the rest of the information that we need to make a determination.
Great. Amazing. Are there any other questions? Hey, Rodrigo. It's good to see your face. Cool. Well, then, if there aren't any more questions, thank you all so much for coming today. We look forward to seeing your applications this year or in the future. And as I said already, I think the advice that they've given applies not only to this, but to many other things. One thing I wanted to mention, so we have spoken about the importance of being involved in post-CRS camp things, right? And Monica's example, for example, as someone that lives in New York, like it was a possibility for her to volunteer in the office and to do so many CRS related things. So I just wanted to assure others for whom that may not be a possibility, that perhaps you are involved with your alumni association, or you help with camper selection, or you do things that maybe aren't as involved as what Monica shared with us, or maybe like there isn't a CRS alumni association in your city where you currently live, but you do other things that show us that you carry forward those values. I think that's Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's also valuable experiences that you should share with us. So don't feel discouraged if you don't have the option to take part in CRS related activities, because you could very well be an excellent candidate anyway.
Absolutely true. And we try to evaluate every candidate in the context of their unique circumstances. So exactly, if you're living in a location which doesn't afford you the opportunity to give back to camp in that, or be involved in that matter, there's a host of ways to be involved, and none is better or worse than the others. It's just a matter of you're involved and you're making a commitment of time and energy. So absolutely, don't underestimate, to use Monica's words, what you've accomplished and what you've done, and everyone is unique. It's always difficult. So everyone knows it's a challenge for us, because everyone who applies generally is quite deserving, and we love them all. And I'd give them all money if I had my way, but I can't. So we have to make some difficult decisions, and we just hope people understand that we make selections to the best of our ability based on the applications we receive. And our hope is, help at least some is better than helping none. And we hope to grow the scholarship program over time, hopefully through generous alumni support, because that's how the scholarship came about. Was somebody puts a whole bunch of money, donated a ton of money to the school, to the organization, and put that into a trust fund that generates income that allows us to give the scholarship every year. So it was through somebody who went to camp and loves it very dearly and wanted to continue the legacy that Freddie had created. And that's how the scholarship has come into existence. So we do hope that the program grows, and that's why we wanted to even sort of encourage people to apply, because in some years we haven't had as many as applicants as we might have expected. So the idea is get the word out there, and then again try to help as many people as we can with the limited resources we do have.
Exactly. Yeah. So tell your camp friends about it, and make sure to apply, and don't feel like, oh, I'm not good enough, or my grades aren't good enough. Like you're all excellent. So and we would love to see your applications. Any last minute questions? Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, it's a bit different topic, but it just popped in my head that next year I'm gonna apply for university, and who do I have to contact if I want to go back for a summer break to camp as a counselor? It just popped in my head. Sorry if it's not for the topic, but yeah.
That's totally fine. That's what.
It's not only for me to handle. I'll put somebody on the call now.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I think Laura would be the ideal person to answer.
First of all, I absolutely love that question. We would, yeah, absolutely, please apply. And so the place to send in an application is on our website. It's lajs.org/staff. And so if you go to that, if you're just way too excited, you can even go visit it now. And on there, we have like a description of our counselor positions. We have introduced some newer ones, so feel free to take a look there. And once you, take a look on there, and then the application is directly on there, and send it in, and then I will be contacting you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, guys.
No worries. Yeah. So once again, thank you, Monica. Thank you, Peter, for being here with us today. And also thank you, Peter, for all the work that you do as the chair of the scholarship committee. It's quite a lot of work, but I think it's worthwhile. And thank you everyone who attended today. As we said, this session will be available online, and you can find information about the scholarship on our website as well. Rodrigo, would you like to ask?
Yeah. Sorry, it is not a question to you. It's a kind of petition. Can you please send me those links to my email, please? Because I didn't receive anything.
Yes, I will look into that after our call, and I'll make sure that you are registered for tomorrow. And that's a good leeway to let you all know that tomorrow we have our last session of Virtual College Week, which is a session titled How to Ask for Help, how to make the most of the CRS network. We know that networking is a word that people struggle with or don't always enjoy, but it's just a session where we will do a few practical exercises on how to tap into our resources and the people that we know, or the people that we're connected to through camp, in school, and other ways, to make sure that we can get the help that we need to move forward in applications and in college and professionally later on. So I hope to see some of you there tomorrow. And I don't know if Monica, Peter, Laura, you have any parting words, but that's all from me.
But thanks very much for hosting this session, and again, for seeing applications hopefully very soon. Thank you for putting it together. My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for organizing this. It was great. Yeah.
We can't hear you, Laura.
Oh no, I did the Zoom classic. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and please join us tomorrow, as Eliam said, for a very exciting final session tomorrow.
Yep. Amazing. Bye, guys.